Hey everybody, thanks for being here. Filmmakers, sit down. Y'all, my name is Jeff Luppino-Esposito. I'm a producer at IMDbPro. I am so thrilled to welcome you to the Directors in Focus panel at the Acura House of Energy. Let's hear it. All right. Now look, this conversation is part of ongoing work at IMDbPro to try to help entertainment professionals like many of you, like these people up here, to showcase their work, connect with each other, and advance their careers. So I really want to get into filmmaking craft and process here so you all feel like you walk away with something you couldn't have learned anywhere else today. So I'm really excited about that. And we're going to be able to get those insights because we have three incredible directors all premiering features here at Sundance this year. So thank you to them. Thank you also to Acura for hosting us in this really cool space. Acura has been lifting up independent artists and diverse voices for over 15 years as an official sponsor at an official partner of Sundance, and that mission is on full display again this year. So thank you for having us, and let's get into it. Okay, start us off. We'll go down. Katarina, you'll kick us off. Introduce yourself. Give a log line of your film in case folks aren't familiar with it yet, and briefly why you had to tell this story right now.
Hi, my name is Katarina Zhu. I am the writer, director, star of Bunny Lover. My film is about a Chinese-American cam girl who enters into this toxic relationship with one of her clients, and at the same time, she's sort of reunited with her estranged father, and she's, just like a mid-20s young woman in New York City trying to navigate her life. And why I felt like I had to tell this story now, I think something that my producers have been saying is that this film in particular feels like a very of the moment film. It's very much about digital personas and connecting online, and I feel like everybody is so online. I feel like that definitely contributes to its sort of why it needs to be told now.
Yeah, I feel that. Go ahead, Rashad.
Hi, how you doing? My name is Rashad Frett. I'm the co-writer and director of Ricky. Thank you. This film follows an ex-offender trying to reacclimate after doing 15 years of incarceration. It's like a coming-of-age story, a 30-year-old man trying to come into adulthood. And the reason why I did this film is because, I've been seeing this for a long time, just growing up amongst my peers, and things are slowly getting better, but we're still not there yet. So, I feel like this is, now more than ever, especially now that I have a platform to make cinema how I would like to. There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Sophie Hyde. I'm the director and co-writer and producer of Jimpa. Our film is, it's about a filmmaker who takes a non-binary teenager to Amsterdam to visit their gay grandfather. So it's an intergenerational queer family where they're sort of exploring how to parent and how to live in the world and be themselves and look after each other. Why I chose to make it now, it's a very personal film. My child is in it. They play Francis, who is also a non-binary transgender child. And it's largely based on my own family and my father. And I think I chose to tell it because there's so much hatred going on and such a divisive culture around trans children. And for me, the idea that my own child has shown me who they want to be, who they are, my whole job is to be incredibly proud of them, look out for them and see them and help understand them and love them. And I can't really understand how that is controversial in any way. I think it's a huge gift to be shown who someone else is. And I suppose I wanted to explore those ideas in a very loving way. And that's what the film is.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I know I've had the unique privilege of being able to see all three films, and they are beautiful and challenging, and I can't wait for everyone to see them. Look, I promised that there would be learnings for the audience. Well, let me get a feel. How many people out here are filmmakers? Who are filmmakers here with us? Make a little sound for it if you're a filmmaker. All right. Own it, yes. Okay, so let's start with some learnings. Two of you, this was your first feature. This is your fourth narrative feature, Sophie. So Rashad, let me kick off with you. What's something you learned making Ricky that you know you're going to bring with you into your next film?
What I learned for me personally is my process as a director. When I was working with Stefan and Shirley Ralph and a lot of the named actors that's out there, they challenged me in my directing, and it taught me how, like, you know, for me, as far as like dealing with my other crew members and cast, how to like approach them and really get the performances that I want. So that's the main thing that I got out of it, like my process of directing.
So you got to give us, what did Stefan James and Cheryl Lee Ralph help you
so-
do?
Oh, you going deep.
I got to know. What did they tell you?
Yeah, no, it's all good. For example, like me and my co-writer, Lin Q A. Young, we wrote the script, and you know things always change. Your script always changes. When you make a film, you make at minimum 3 films. Whoever heard that before? Right?
Yeah.
So in the process of, you know, when we were in production, for example, we had a scene written, and you know I had like, you know, a process of how I was going to direct it, and like Stefana, you know, have some suggestions in regards to, you know, really getting into his character, which involved changing some lines and being, you know, a collaborative venture between both of us and things like that. Yeah.
So it's about staying open to those moments as they appeared?
Stay open all the time.
Yeah.
And another thing, be extremely respectful to everyone. You know, you got to keep the morale up because, you know, it affects the work, you know, so I'm big on that.
Yeah, you're asking a lot of everyone involved when you're making an independent film. Katarina, how about you as a first-time feature as well?
I think one of my biggest takeaways from this, my first-time feature-making experience is that a post-production supervisor is incredibly important and helpful. I did not have one. So I learned the hard way that you really should have one. I mean, I think particularly for our post-production process, it was really condensed. So we wrapped August 23rd, and then, you know, edited for like a couple weeks straight in order to be able to submit to Sundance.
Wow.
And I think there were a lot of moving pieces, and it would have been incredibly like a huge like time and money saver to have someone just overseeing all of those different pieces.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you feel this, and you've all, I imagine, experienced this in different ways where you feel you can do it all sometimes, but you find out that it might be worth the investment to bring in that extra collaborator.
Yeah. Did you have a post-production supervisor?
Yes, I did. Mark Steele, are you here?
Oh, let's hear it for him anyway.
But I tell
Let's
you,
hear it
look,
for him.
Mark Steele isn't here, but my editor is.
Yes.
Who did
Okay.
amazing work. They should give a round of applause for her, please. Seriously. She really tied it together, and thank you.
Sophie, I'm sure you are still learning when it comes to feature 4, but you know, as you get to 2, 3, 4, what are the things that stand out for you on this one?
There's a thing that you kind of continue to learn, or I continue to learn about making films, and that is, I think this film is very explicitly personal, but all my films are very personal, I would say, and no matter what I do, I'm just going to like put my entire self into them. On this film, I did that very purposefully, and I chose really early on to just be very sincere and very vulnerable with my whole team, and the team was much bigger than I had had before, even though it's still very much an indie film. We were shooting in Australia, Amsterdam, Finland, and then back to Australia again. So we were over a long period, and it's a big ensemble of actors. And I had many of my long-term collaborators, but I also had a lot of new collaborators on this. And so I kind of went, everyone needs to just show up as they are. I'm going to do the same. Sometimes I would get this like vulnerability hangover where I'd be like, God, I've just that's too much. I feel sick, do you know? But it was sort of the only way to do this, and it's the only way I really know how to make films. And I think this time I just went, that's it. I'm doing it. I'm not being afraid. My heart is on my sleeve. I'm the most sincere I've ever been, and I just went for it. And I think that meant that everyone that I was working with like opened up their hearts, and all of them brought in so many things. Like the film changed so many times because of the people in it and that I was working with, and everyone's point of view and perspective. And that just felt, you know, I feel like more and more I turn away from the idea that films are made the way that, like, there's a set way of making a film, this kind of industrial model that we make in, and that's great, and it works for some people really well, but it doesn't work well for me. Like, I have to reinvent a film or the process every time.
Yeah, I heard in all of these, as far as like a learning was bringing in collaborators who you could be vulnerable with and looking to them and saying yes to what they were bringing to the table too. How do you know when you're trying to find collaborators who are you going to be so open with? What are the things you're looking for to know they're going to be the right fit for you? Katarina, does something come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like I think just passion, like passion for the project and passion for the story that you're telling. And I think like this was something that I really struggled with on this project, where, you know, as a first-time director, I think it's very normal to sort of second guess your instincts and sort of when you're looking for crew, you know, I was poring over like all my options and really looking at their bodies of work and like sort of racking my brain of like, well, this person did this on this and that was great, but then this person did, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is like trusting that your vision will be able to, no matter who you choose, like you'll be able to guide them towards the direction of your vision, and as long as they're passionate about the story that you're trying to tell and, you know, professional and hardworking, then the rest is sort of within your control, and it's so, yeah.
Yeah. Rashad, you know, as you're saying, you were telling a story that you had seen in a lot of ways. I mean, when you're building your team out, how important is it to bring in folks who have related experiences, have seen those things themselves, or conversely, people who have no connection to it that bring another perspective? How was that for you?
Well, the team that I work with, I've worked with for many, many years, and it just kept building over time. One thing that I look for, I have this instinct where I could like look at someone, and within like 5 seconds, I could tell if they're like have some type of potential or talent or something like that. I've always had that. So like a lot of people that I work with for years has that, or I've seen them progress over the years. But definitely people, to like what you were saying, that resonate with the films that I'm trying to make, and vice versa, because I also work on their films as well, you know what I mean? And a big thing for me is just how we vibe, because that ultimately, what I learned in this process of working with people, you find out people's true selves under pressure, power, alcohol, and saying no. So in this process of making this film, I've learned some things in that regards, and you know, but ultimately, people that I met and who I've been working with for a very long time, you know, for the most part, they're just real chill, and it just so happened that they're talented on top of that. So it's, you know,
Yeah. On that topic of looking for collaborators and feeling the vibe, but also trying to look online, you know, at IMDb Pro, we really are trying to help people put themselves out there in the best way. Do you have any experiences of being on IMDb Pro, finding someone, a collaborator, a decision maker? Because we'd love for all these people to be able to do the same on their next project. Anything come to mind?
I love IMDb Pro. I'm constantly looking at my star meter.
Yeah.
But for this project in particular, I think IMDb Pro is really helpful in terms of like, I think you can get so granular on IMDb Pro. Like when I was looking at, I don't know, say like a colorist or just like a post-production house, and they on their website they list all of these credits, but then it doesn't really say exactly what they did on the film. You know, it's like, well, you could have done, if it was like a sound place, well, like the dialogue editing, but they maybe didn't do like the actual design and stuff like that. So it was really, IMDb Pro was really helpful that way, where I could go on and like look up a post-production house and see exactly, you know, like who worked on what, and then who would I be working with at that studio. So yes.
I love that as a takeaway too, which is like trying to be really specific in your research that you know the person you brought on did the thing you think they did on that project. It's a good watch out, yeah.
Yeah, for me, to like what you were saying, you know, like, I'm gonna give you my process. So like, I look at a film, right, and I'm like, wow, I really like that score. Who did the score? Then I'm like, you know what, let me check out the IMDb Pro to see if they legit or not, you know, which they are, obviously. You know, then, you know, check up everything they do, you know, it's a resume, and then find out how to get in contact with them, you know? So that's how I did that a couple times.
I mean, I use IMDb Pro all the time. Mostly I use it to look up cast, I realize, and like to see who they're with and how to connect with them. But I certainly, if I love a movie, I always look up who worked on it. And going back to the question about collaborators, I have the good fortune of having worked with Brian, who's sitting right there, who's my usually my cinematographer and editor, but on this film was editor and producer and second camera. We've worked together for like 25 years, and we also have a child together, so it's easy.
Pretty cool.
Seriously.
Look, and I have very like amazing long-term collaborators who I trust very much. But I said on this, I had new people, like our lead producer was a first-time producer, and that was amazing for me. And one of the things I was looking for in terms of collaboration was a range of people. We wanted people with different perspectives, lots of people that were queer and trans, lots of different ages, gender parity. Like, we were going for all of those things. And so some of those people, like our cinematographer and production designer, we would have looked up the film that we loved that they did before. They both came from the same movie and found them. We're all Australian, so we sort of half know each other. But that's how you find people. You see what their credits are, and not always, but you certainly. There's nowhere else to find that. I'm instantly coming out of a film like IMDb Pro. What's happening? You know.
I think you called out too, like, we really encourage people to self-identify where you feel comfortable on IMDb Pro, so that if folks are looking for gender parity or trans identity, anything where you want to be representative in your filmmaking, you know, we really encourage people to put that information in if they feel comfortable with it, so that you can find them. Yeah. This is definitely an in the weeds one. I want to talk about how you built out the team for this, whether it was actors, other production companies, that helped lead to the funding, to getting the movie made. I mean, how many people here have a movie they would love to get funded? Yes? Yes, okay. All of us. So I think, you know, if you feel comfortable talking about it, I'd love to hear those steps. Like, when did someone get added that then helped kind of push it to the next level?
For me, well, I got a first draft of my script out in March 2023, and after that, it was me, my incredible manager, Anna, who's here right now. Shout out, Anna. Woo! And then one of my best friends from NYU, Rachel Sennett, who is a producer and a actor in the film. It was sort of the three of us taking the project out to anybody who might be interested, producers and financiers, and it was definitely, you know, the classic, like, pushing the boulder up the hill. It was like first-time feature filmmaker, writer, director, actor. It's a big risk, I think, and so I think a lot of people were obviously averse to that risk, but obviously having Rachel attached as a producer was incredibly helpful. You know, just the level of interest and exposure that having her name on the project brought us helped immensely, and it was ultimately through her that we were connected to Neon Heart Productions, And so they executive produced Shiva Baby, Emma Seligman's first feature, which Rachel starred in. And so they had like a working relationship, and they came on for the initial financing. They came on as financiers and producers. Before that, we had another like independent producer, Roger Mancusi, come on, and then Neon Heart brought on my final producer, Ani Schrader, who is also amazing. And once we got the initial chunk of funding from Neon Heart, then obviously that was like the cosign for other people. And then we just cobbled together from other independent financiers and small production companies. But yeah, it was, I mean, we didn't get our final piece of financing until the day after we wrapped. So, you know, it's
Wow.
like building the ship as you're sailing only.
Yeah. Has that been y'all's experience too? I mean, Rashad, you had a short in 2023 called Ricky, and now we're seeing the feature of it. How did that play into the path here?
You want the long or short version?
How about medium?
So pretty much from the short, just honored to like have it be in the Sundance Film Festival back in 2023, and the Sundance Institute allowed me to, and my co-writer, to submit to the labs, and you know, from the support that we got from the labs, and then also in the process, in that entire process, I got signed with William Morris, and they really, you know, between them two and, you know, having amazing producers, really presented a lot of potential investors. And, you know, it's a dance, you know, and you got to see who you gel with. And what I learned in this process is, you know, there's compromises you'd have to do sometimes, but also stay true to your vision. So just pretty much navigating that, and you know, my agency introduced me to an investor who really resonated with the story, and you know, it was a long talk. You know, some compromises were made, but it was for the greater good. You know, so and then here we are.
Yeah, it's such an involved business endeavor. Sophie, as you find yourself on this fourth feature, and also coming from Australia as well, I'm sure it's a different market. What is that experience on this one? Obviously, you've built a lot of trust at this point, but do you feel like it's always pushing the boulder up the hill?
It's always really hard. In some ways, it gets a lot easier. So I have this sort of double-edged kind of feeling about it. But the first time I came to Sundance the first time with a film in 2014, 52 Tuesdays, and I remember the Duplass brothers doing a talk there, and they were like, "The cavalry is not coming." And I was like, what do you mean? Like, they were like, you know, you get something and it's really successful and you win an award and then you sell your big movie and then, you know, and you sign with an agent and everything becomes slightly easier, but the cavalry's not coming. Like, no one's going to walk in the door and be like, ba-ba-ba, here it is, for indie filmmakers. Oh, well, that hasn't been my experience. They were totally right. We're very fortunate in Australia in one way, which is that we have government finance for our films, but that still, you have to piece it together. And that comes with the other side, which is that we don't have a very big market. So we are piecing together from money in Australia, money in the Netherlands, private finance, gap loans, some market. It's really hard. There's a little bit more trust that happens. And like on this film, Olivia Colman read the script, signed on, and from there, like, we could finance the film. But I tell you what, my last film sold really well here at Sundance. Like, and I've made multiple films now, and Olivia signed on, and it was still really hard to put the money together. And it's like not the greatest deal in the world, you know. But the biggest challenge for us on this was that we were shooting in all these countries and we had all these great partners, but the closing process, we were still closing when we had shot already in Australia and we were in the Netherlands with our whole team. And so the financial risk for me and for my team was so huge, you know, because you're not insured until you close, and that kind of money is terrifying. But you sort of leap in and you're like, let's go. Like, what else am I going to do? But yeah, it's a really different model coming from what they call soft money. But it still is, piecing it together.
That's incredible. Yeah, you can get an Academy Award-winning actress. Not enough.
And John Lithgow as well.
And John Lithgow, yeah, also. On that topic of, obviously you're coming from Australia. Katarina, you're based in New York. Rashad, where are you based? New York, okay, that's really interesting. Just obviously we hear so much about LA, but to have all coming from different home base, it's interesting. You were hinting at your incredible casts, and Rashad, you teased this earlier, but I'll start with you, Sophie, on this. What's something you took away from working with the great Olivia Colman, or your own child, or John Lithgow, who, if it wasn't stated already, Sophie's child is in the film.
Aud's right there, just sitting right there. Aud plays opposite John and Olivia.
And is wonderful in the film, But yeah, I think, we have a lot to learn from actors, and Rashad was getting at that. Anything you took away from your cast?
Yeah. I mean, I love actors. It's my favorite part of making films. I mean, then they're strange and weird and excellent creatures, sorry, actors in the room. I love you. It is so... I started out really working with non-professional actors or new actors in the first few films, or the first film that I made, and I really love doing that still. It allowed me to kind of create my way of working, which is a little bit wacky sometimes for people, or it's just very handmade and very made up. I do lots of workshopping and lots of talking and lots of building character and worlds and physicality, and the exercises that we do change on every movie. Like, we did so many things on this, but for instance, we'd always everyone would have to draw each other and not look at the page and not take their pen off. And so you get these beautiful portraits, but really everyone was being able to look at the person opposite them without self-consciousness, because they were also thinking about drawing. So we did lots of that sort of thing. And because I came from working with essentially non-professional actors, that was a really lovely, easy process there. And then stepping into working with actors who had a lot more experience than me on my next few films, it was terrifying to me. I was like, am I going to stay in my process, like what I do, or should I shift? And I think with every single actor, I am different. I do a slightly different process depending on who they are, but I also love those things. And every actor's so unique. Like, John walks into the room and he's like, let's go, shut the door, let's go. Like, I'm lying on the floor, like, draw me, like, let's dance, he's just so... He just has so much gusto. He's so ready. He's like, let's rehearse, let's do everything. I'm up for it, And our whole cast was like that, thankfully. Especially if someone like John walks in, you go with it.
You match it,
Olivia's less like that, although she was really enjoyed that process, I think, on this. But she's very much an actor who you don't want to do too much with. You're like, go, Like, her emotional sort of instinct is very strong, and obviously her craft is amazing. But she still came into that. She built the world with everybody and the history of the characters and all of that. But I don't want to tell her too much. Like, on a set, I want to... John's looking for... Most actors are looking for you, and I want to look after them. But Olivia, I know, don't talk too much. She might cry if you say anything, so you kind of have to, let her be, and that's a thing to learn.
She's just so vulnerable, you feel like if you take her there...
She's like, you don't want me to cry in this take, do you? And I'm like, no. And she's like, don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. No, we had a really beautiful thing, but yeah, she kind of distracts herself. She doesn't want to be thinking about it too much. It's very different from other actors I've worked with. But you're watching her and you're like, you don't need to step in and say anything. And if she doesn't need that, why do it? Yeah. So doing less was a kind of interesting thing for me.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Katarina, I'm going to throw to you for any learnings from Rachel or Austin, but also give me, because I love this from Sophie, any exercises you do with your actors too, because I love any of those director tricks.
Something that I've started doing is, if there's New York Times 36 questions to make you fall in love or something, I did that with the actor who plays my father, Perry Young. There's such a short amount of time where you have to establish deep history and intimacy, and I find that exercise really, really helps. And
I also happen to say, because I didn't clarify, but Katarina stars in the film as well, so is playing opposite all of these actors in addition to directing them. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think with Rachel, we've been friends for like 10 years, so I think there was already like a history, chemistry there. Like we didn't have to, the friendship is there. But I mean, she's just like a force of nature. She's so incredible. It was incredible watching her work as someone who, works so much. I think she just, she is so flexible, but then also brings so many ideas to the table and like is the best at making choices. She's always making like such a clear choice. There's never, she's never like waffling on anything, and if it's not right, she's happy, like easily pivots to another choice. And then Austin, I think from him I really learned like he was just so incredible to work with in terms of like he was like, I want to serve your vision, and like I am so just like tell me exactly what you need, and I would tell him, and then he'd just like do it on the first take. He is such an incredible actor. I mean my whole cast, I feel like it's my dream cast. I feel so lucky to have been able to work with all of them.
Yeah. Rashad, I loved when you said earlier, because it disconnected with Katarina here, when Katarina said, an actor comes in with a strong choice, and sometimes you have to say no to them, and you brought up that's often where you learn from either a crew member or an actor. When you say no, and having the strength to say no, that's not what I'm looking for. Any moments where you remember finding the vision with one of your actors, navigating that maybe delicately, or how that played out?
I mean, there's many ways to say no. You don't necessarily need to say no.
Yeah.
You can say, sure,
You just say yes.
Sure, I mean, let's try it that way, and then let's try it this way also.
Yeah.
So you get both. Mm-hmm. And then in post-production, you have more things to work with.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'm going to follow up on that. Did you find yourself being surprised in that way? And any of you can hop in, too. Like, anything in post where you're like, wow, I really thought this is what this scene called for, but I was wrong.
Yes, that happened a lot. Yeah, during the process, we had a lot of hiccups. But I'm a big believer of, things happen how it's supposed to happen. And the universe, I would say the universe and a great editor brought this film together.
Yes.
And just having a great team around. But yeah, like for example, like even Titus Welliver, like working with him was like, and all of them were incredible. Like Titus would give me like some takes where he knows exactly where the camera's gonna go, or he would suggest, okay, based on this, and I was always open with my cinematographer to, make adjustments and this and that. So it was always about being open and like I said, it's more than one way to say no. So just take it in, soak that in.
That's a really interesting dynamic for directors. I'm sure you've all encountered in different ways with your actors. Which ones want to know all the technical aspects? Which ones don't? How open do you find yourself being as a default? How much are you telling your actors, look, it's going to be a camera that's coming in, and so you can get more intimate as it comes? Like, how do you handle that as a default, Sophie?
I don't think I talk to them very much about the technical part of it. Some of them, they're so adept at being in front of a camera, it's crazy. Some of them, like Aud was like, which eye do I use at one point? They really work with each other a lot on that stuff. Do I talk to them about technical? No. Yes, Aud's nodding, saying yes, you do.
Oh,
I mean, the thing
okay.
is, here's the thing, like, I want to be able to protect the cast from a lot of things. I'm a real believer that they have to do something that none of us have to do. Like, they're so vulnerable in this, and they have to achieve it in front of the camera, So I'm really like, the set needs to be the actors when we go onto the set. Like, everyone can chat about the weekend and whatever, but when the actors come on, it's incredibly respectful to that. And the feeling that's in the scene is really important. And we had so many different actors on this and so many different kinds of feelings that we needed to create, But then Aud has grown up with us making movies and is playing a version of themselves in the film. And you try so hard to sort of protect them from all the other stuff, but of course you can't, because they're the person that is closest to you and you love, and so they see everything. The hardest thing between us, everything was so excellent in us working, but the hardest thing was me knowing that Ord knew what was happening for me all the time and wanted to look after me too. And I don't usually have that with an actor. Usually I'm able to like be completely relaxed and chill with them, and no matter what's going on. But Ord knows, Ord sees underneath that. So I didn't know how to protect them from that. That was a really strange and interesting part of it. Sorry, Ord.
No, that's so unique. You started to get at this, Sophie. All of your films have emotionally and physically challenging beats that every day, like you were saying, you have to set the tone and make sure everyone's comfortable and ready to tackle that. Rashad, I'll throw to you here. Does a day come to mind where, because there's a bunch of emotional moments in Ricky that stay with me that I thought you had to clear a lot of space. You had to get everyone in the right headspace. One day come to mind where you had to set the table for something big?
Yeah, that happened a lot,
Yeah.
actually. What I would do is between every take, I would check in with the actors. I would make sure that the crew and everyone around is respectful and quiet. And I would always check in because some of the scenes were like extremely emotional. And shout out to Stefan. He really took the time to go deep into those, that role. And I always wanted to check in. What I may do is like, I may crack a joke after, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
to like really get everyone back out of that space temporarily, because you don't want to keep going too deep off the edge. And then I've always checked in. Even with my actor in my short, same thing, because he was like, there was one time where he just, like, we were about to start rolling, he just kind of went off the ledge, and I just told everybody, just wait. I told everybody, wait, and we waited, and then he finally came back, and then I silently yelled, cut, and I checked in with him, and he was good. So, you got to just really check in and just see where they're at. You don't want to keep like forcing. Yeah.
Yeah, that balance of we've got to get the shot, we have a limited amount of time, but we've got to protect our actors. Yeah. And I also like that you could just crack a joke sometimes. And Katarina, you were getting at this with Austin. He finds himself in some pretty challenging scenes. I don't want to give too much away. And y'all were over a video screen for a lot of your scenes. I'm interested in how you directed those moments where you're both going to be talking to a screen, and then also navigating the emotional beats with him there.
Totally. It was, so I didn't want to do anything, I wanted to do all of the tech stuff practically. So, we could have sort of done like, the easier thing to do would have been to sort of screen record and then like, place it in later, but we decided to do it practically, which meant that we were in a studio apartment in the Lower East Side. It was like a shoebox, and so me and Austin were basically 10 feet away from each other the whole time. There were 2 laptops hardwired to each other. He was sitting in this like tiny bathroom. It's like August. It's like 1,000 degrees in there. He's like, it's the only, yeah. It was. He was a trooper for that, but. So the camera from his laptop, that would feed to my laptop, and then the camera from my laptop would feed into his laptop. So it was definitely a challenge. There were a lot of challenges with the technical aspect of it, and then directing him over it. I mean, we did like a fair amount of prep. I feel like once we got on set, there wasn't like. And he just really was the character. Like I feel like I barely directed him, truthfully. But I think to help with some of those moments, the first week of shooting, we were in the studio apartment for the whole week, so 5 days. And I think I, as much as possible, tried to keep it a closed set, just to help with that sense of like intimacy and just so that everybody felt comfortable and like as free as possible to do what they needed to do.
Yeah. Okay. As we're nearing an end, I want to talk a little bit about how you found your identity as a director and how you pitch that and tell it to other people. I think that's a really hard thing to do, directors to find their own identity and then figure out how to say to someone else, this is who I am as a director, beyond the work itself. How have you navigated that?
So I've been directing for a very, 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 very long time. And in that time, like, my process evolved, my voice evolved. What helped for me is, I went back to film school after taking a long time off, and, really being around other collaborators and just feeding off of each other's energy really helped me to hone in my skills as a director. So, and then, I teach as well. So even with my students, they teach me things, especially with like technology, because when I was their age, the cameras and everything were different, so just really taking in what's going on and follow the universe.
Yeah, and when someone says to you, like, Rashad, as a director, you are, what do you tell them?
I am a visionary. I am very, very passionate about my vision, and if you tell me no, I will figure it out anyways.
Cool. Yeah. Katarina, go ahead. Yeah.
I think for me, I come from an acting background, so I went to NYU for acting, and I feel like I still do, this is my first feature, and I've done like a couple shorts, but I feel like I'm like still finding my identity as a director. I don't know, I feel like I'm really, really still sort of like navigating my identity as a director, and how I, obviously people are asking, what are you going to do next? And I feel like now I'm in the moment of having to figure out how to pitch myself. But
Anything emerging? Anything you're finding yourself saying?
I mean, I think one of the things that I want to do with every project that I make is like to include a nuanced portrayal of like an Asian American person without the whole story being predicated on their being Asian American. That's really important to me.
Yeah, totally. Sophie, how about you? Yes. I'm sure it's evolved over the years, but has it crystallized?
I'm just sitting here thinking, I have no idea how I do this. Like, I'm not great at it, I think. I'm really into intimacy. I'm really into characters that are kind of that we maybe don't see much of, or like putting people on screen that might make choices that we're not expecting, or in the case of this, that are making choices that aren't just about conflict or like pushing drama forward for a certain reason. So I'm really into character. I do a lot of sex scenes. I really like sex scenes.
Cool.
I like working. I think I like the working with actors thing, and the kind of. It's mostly been actors that have allowed me to keep making movies more than anyone else. Is like being able to collaborate with them, and that means that oftentimes that's how I make a film now. Is there's somebody that I can work with that is financeable, basically.
Yeah. It's so inspiring to hear each of your different ways in and how that is continuing to emerge. I want to say thank you to our incredible directors here, Katarina Zhu, Rashad Frett, Sophie Hyde. Their movies are amazing. Thank you to Acura, and thank you all for coming. Have a great festival, y'all. Thanks, everybody.